poor planning because I tore my car apart and I didn't have any money to put it back together. So I learned pretty quick. You don't tear it apart until you got money to put it back together. So
money or skills, right?
And I mean, we still see it now. Like people are like, hey, what's going on with the Evil Evo? It's like, well, there's no point in me tearing apart until I can afford to do the job. So I think a lot of the pain is like self-inflicted.
Welcome to another episode of Modified with TrickFactory Customs. If this is your first time watching, my name is Elvis.
Tim?
Jimmy John.
You've used Jimmy John before.
I know.
Come on,
you
man.
just put me in the spot. I totally forgot.
You gotta throw like a Julio
Diamond
Yeah, or like, I don't know.
Horatio.
Oh, Horatio. That's a good one.
My name is Don Juan.
Ignatius.
Yeah, Ignacio.
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 Damn, that was a good one.
Save it for next week.
Ignacio.
Yeah. But if this is your first time watching, his name is actually Rob. It's not any of those things we just called, but
Man, dude.
Yeah, he's on a journey to I don't know, re-identify all the names. I don't know, that's not a good word.
I think he misunderstanding that whole gender thing, the he, she.
No.
It's like that TikTok. What is your gender? Mechanic?
Yeah. No, I have a pretty clear understanding of where I'm at.
So this is not a gender podcast. This is an automotive podcast, regardless of what we just talked about. But we are a custom automotive shop based here in Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada. And we talk about modified cars. And on this episode, we are going to be discussing modifying cars. Is it a passion or pain? Because, yeah, I know there's some soft spots that are going to be hit or that have been hit. We all love cars, but a lot of times they can be the bane of our existence. And so we're just going to dive into that, and we're going to do some self-reflecting in this episode. It's going to be glorious. But before we dive into the topic, what have you guys been up to all week?
We've had all kinds of exciting developments this week.
Well, this week has been kind of
not a business takeover, maybe acquisition.
Oh, okay.
Expansion.
That's a good word.
We'll go with expansion. Yeah, we opened a new paint shop, so we've been transitioning all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of, it's been an adventure for sure.
Yeah.
But we got it done, and the guys are in there cleaning it up right now, and hopefully this brings us some adjustments to our workflow, and we can get things rolling again. So
yeah,
we've definitely had it's held up a lot of things, and we've had highs and lows, and owning a business is not an easy thing.
Especially like related to cars. Definitely, it's like it's a passion and a pain,
and it's tough to try to convey some of these challenges to your customers because a lot of times it just kind of sounds like excuses as to why their stuff's not getting done. But I mean, some understand it better than others. But
yeah, anybody that's had some experience building, custom cars anything, or have had them built.
Built anything.
They typically understand. They get it, and it's a different time in the world now. So things a lot of shifting and understanding and sort of like how to go about it seems is changing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting for us.
Today is actually a pretty big
awesome
day. So
yeah, getting that new paint department, like that whole thing, rolling at the level that we see it rolling to right away is going to be really, really nice for our shop. And we have other things sort of queuing up for like the evolution of the shop as well. So yeah, it's just been a really busy week, busy couple of weeks actually. I mean, we've been working towards this now for a little while.
Yeah. It's been probably a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of long in the tooth now, but it's coming through.
So lots of new content.
Yeah.
We got cars that are ready for paint stacked up and been holding us up. So
excited.
I mean,
a lot of shiny stuff going to be coming out in the next few weeks.
So what are some, just give us some highlights of some stuff that you recall that are going to be painted.
We have the all steel RSR wide body. That one needs to be painted. We got the Miles Work wide body Porsche that's ready for paint. And yeah, we got a couple of big repair jobs that we got to do on some pretty nice cars that need a booth right away. We have a bike that I think we're spraying on Monday.
Okay.
And then we got all these G-Wagons. We just got G-Wagons stacked up for days. So
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
haven't scheduled any new paint work just because we are so far behind in what we're doing. But then we got all those Benzes to do. So
Yeah. I'm going to slide my little 996 in there somewhere too. Yeah.
sun's shining. We got to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we've been kind of holding off because we've been trying to work towards like evolving our current shop the way it was to be more smooth in the paint department. But we've ran into a lot of hiccups sort of trying to develop that. So this whole acquisition, this new evolution is pretty cool, and it's
Glorious.
It's going to make life a little bit easier. We're going to be able to, smooth out our floor plan
More space.
in the current
Space.
shop, and then we have like lots of plans that we're kind of working towards on that, like a lot more milling equipment,
So there's-
in-house composites department, like just a lot of really cool things.
Sweet. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll do a tour on the other place whenever it's up and running.
Yeah, I think they're spraying something in there today.
Oh.
Oh yeah, they're not wasting any time. I mean, we've
So-
all kind of been chomping at the bit for this.
Yeah.
So
We're just waiting.
yeah. So it's going to take a little bit of time for us to sort of develop like the aesthetic of the place, brand it, do all the things, make it set up exactly the way it needs to be for efficiency as well. But right, we're just chomping at the bit. We're ready to get the cars in the booth, and so that's first priority. Because those cars are sick, and we've been waiting to get them done for a while. So
Awesome.
So yeah, big things.
Yes.
yeah.
Sweet. So, with that said, we're just gonna dive right into the topic. So I just want to know as we dive into the topic, I just want to know first of all, what got you guys into cars? Because I feel like that is something I don't think that we have talked about on this podcast in the almost 50 episodes that we are in right now. It's what got you guys into cars?
We never really did a backstory, what got us into it all.
Yeah.
I've been drawing cars since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And basically it started out with like Hot Wheels. Then it progressed, and then I'm going to age myself right now. There was actually a magazine called Cartoon Magazine.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was huge for me.
It's huge. So like that was basically all hot rod building, and sort of a look into the lifestyle of hot rod building. Like they literally had cartoons about trials and tribulations of hot rod.
Oh,
And it was
that's
like,
funny.
This guy would pull a car in the barn and parts would show up, and then boom, this thing would come out on Monday all flamed, big wheels,
Yeah.
blower. It was all crazy. But they'd pull in some like rusty, dilapidated thing out
Yeah.
of the field, and there's literally like a 12-panel cartoon of this
Oh.
thing turning it into a hot rod.
Yeah, it was a
But
whole magazine, eh?
the cool thing about the magazine was there would be a section in it that showed you how to draw the cars.
Yeah.
It was like in the stages.
That's
it was
pretty
like,
cool.
That was kind of what got me into it, like
Yeah.
a lot too. So
Then it was just drawing cars forever.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't like, my dad wasn't really into cars. So there was always like that one uncle that would show up in like the Camaro or the Mustang.
Yeah.
Or, in our family, there wasn't really a ton of that, but like our parents always had like that one buddy that had like a
Yeah.
Corvette or something.
Yeah.
And the way they reacted to that person, it was like they're the coolest person
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
world. So you couldn't help but feed off that energy, and then it just progressed from there.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was pretty natural because later I got into like BMX racing, and then you're modifying. And
Oh, you were in
changing.
BMX racing. I did not know
yeah, this
that.
guy was like almost a Canadian champion. Like for real.
That's amazing.
I know.
Oh, shoot.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
He still has his bike. You still have your bike.
Yeah, I still have my bike.
No, is it
It's a
here?
sick bike.
Upstairs.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, that cartoon's comic book was super significant to me too, because I would like go to school and I'd be like practicing all the drawing lessons and everything, like Tim was describing. I'd be like drawing like V8s with big root superchargers
Nice.
and all that stuff in there, and I like actually didn't even really know what any of that stuff was. But I remember what it looked like, and it was like a huge part of like my whole development.
But it comes
You know?
naturally because even building Legos at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know anybody that put a square footment on a Lego car that they built? I don't.
Yeah, who would?
Right away, you put
Nah.
big wheels on the back, small ones on the front.
Immediately modify it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, cartoons was a huge part of that. So,
That was pretty awesome.
but yeah, and then like so, basically, why we do what we do is because somebody told us that we can't.
Oh,
So
Yep, that's how it jumped up. That's how we got into business, basically.
yeah,
So, and I bought a shit box. I bought a Datsun 240Z, was like my first car, and it was
nice.
wide bodied and had wheels and shiny red paint, but it was just a complete pile
Rust?
of shit.
Yeah.
All rust, fiberglass, undercoating, and I was broken down all the time,
yeah.
constantly.
Wow.
But I fell for it, and then I had to live the pain of it after that.
Right.
So sad.
I remember that car. That was a huge car for me. Like that, your car was what made me love.
So
the
like I
Datsun
think
Z
back
car.
to that car, and it was like so far ahead of its time
The Z.
at the time as
Oh,
far as
okay.
styling, because it was like Ferrari red. He had tucked the bumpers and matte blacked all the trim and the
Nice.
bumpers, and it was pretty.
It had molded.
Way
It had big like oversized molded wheel flares on it. It was sick, man.
Do you
It
still have
was-
a picture? I don't
It
think
was
I've seen
really
it.
really
That's
sick.
when there's filming cameras, man.
Ah.
You gotta get pictures
bro.
developed.
You gotta buy gas, man. Not fucking film for cameras.
Oh my gosh.
I wish I had pictures of that, so I hope to recreate something like that.
Yeah.
If you remember the VIN number or have the VIN
I have
number
it.
somewhere, ooh,
I have
maybe
that
we
car
can
still.
maybe we can look it up and we can see if it's still alive or if it's like
No,
in
I
the
have
field.
the car.
No, see,
You
Elvis, you,
still have
probably
your
haven't
first car?
recognized it, but
Yeah.
in the rafters in our
Oh.
storage facility,
Is that
there's
car.
pretty much
No
a full
way.
Z car up there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Engine, everything.
Fenders, motor, doors, everything still up
Yeah.
there. I
Wait,
have
where's the body?
it was cooked
Yeah.
completely.
So the
cooked.
body does not exist anymore.
No.
No.
Okay.
But I still have the original VIN. I have all the parts.
That's
the only thing I don't have
funny.
is the main body.
I thought
Yeah.
you sold the body. That's why I was like,
No,
oh,
no, it was just too far gone. And then I
Oh,
bought
wow.
another one. And then that was at the point where it's like my old man was like, you need to get this junk out of the driveway, because
Yeah.
I'd bitten off more than I could chew. And I didn't have the abilities or the facilities.
Yeah.
So that just, I ended up packing it all up, bringing it down here. And then now I have one in the basement that's just waiting its turn.
so
Yeah.
you have 3 240Zs.
I have enough parts for 3 240Zs.
But you got initially you had 2, like you bought one to restore the other, and you ended up taking that one apart too. The
Taking
second
that one apart, and then ended up buying another one.
Oh
and then
my gosh!
took that one apart, and then yeah, like I say, my dad just like, get this shit out of here. So I ended up getting rid of that one, and then I bought another one.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. Yeah.
Coincidentally
lifetime
enough, the
ago.
one that I bought now is super rare. It's actually that's 69, so it's like a first year,
69.
and it was the lamest spec ever, but it's the ultra rare spec.
Really?
So it's a 70 technically, but if you look at the tag, it was made in like 11 of 69. Had automatic and air conditioning.
Yeah.
Oh, air conditioning.
In a car that makes 150 horsepower,
I know, it's
at
like gonna suck.
4,500 RPM,
Yeah.
that thing must have been a turd.
yeah.
So the first thing I did was pull it out, and then of course, I had a bunch of 5-speeds, a 4-speed and a 5-speed. I put a 5-speed in it,
Nice.
and I dailied that thing for
Yeah. I mean,
Couple
that
years.
was a car. I mean, when we
holes in the floor, like little electric heater, defrost the window.
It drives.
Like,
That's
I
the most
love that
important
thing.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, in wintertime, holes in the footwell, you know.
Yeah, we would be
get
drifting
it.
around corners, and snow spray would be coming up from the floor. That thing was awesome.
But
That's
like
amazing.
those experiences, when you reflect back on them, they seem just like, the good old days, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was kind of like shit in the moment, but it was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the cool shit. Like,
So yeah, when we try to save all these young kids pain by doing dumb shit, it's because we did it all. But maybe you have to do it.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, for me, I also didn't really have my mom or dad they were not into cars.
yeah.
But I know, like, I mean, from the little toys you get when you're a kid, I'm like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And you could like use the remote control to control it. But then I started watching like Top Gear. I think that was what got me into like,
yeah?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Seeing all the cars they reviewed, not the American Top Gear. If you guys don't know, there's the British one with
Yeah.
Clarkson, May, and Richard Hammond.
Yeah.
That was what I grew up watching. And so it just made my day. And that was probably most of the only shows that I watched. I didn't care about cartoons as much. I was just like, I just want to watch Top Gear every Sunday at like 8. I think that's when I forgot what time it came on in Nigeria, but those were good times.
Yeah.
And then I used to see there were not a lot of car people in Nigeria too. It was like it's different, and it's probably changed now. But I remember seeing, not like mine was a 350Z, but I remember seeing a 350Z back in like the early 2000s, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest car I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I always vowed, I was like, oh, I want to get one so bad.
Yeah.
And then I got a minivan as my first car, so that was and that was fun. But I did end up getting a 370Z as my second car.
There you go.
So that was glorious.
You got some redemption.
Yeah, saved all my life savings but I made all the wrong decisions getting that car, because first of all, I got it from Miami. So it was not, it was
involved in a drive-by.
Yeah.
It was not the best. Did it have any residual
It was kind of
drug
sketchy.
paraphernalia?
No, but it was kind of sketchy, and that's everything about the whole deal was just kind of weird, because it's one of those, I got it from one of those places that it's like, oh, we'll finance anyone for blah, 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 30-something%.
Yeah.
Your payments never go away.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
He was rolling a 370.
I know. That was all that mattered.
You gotta do it. No.
Yeah, and I couldn't, I used all my money to buy it, and so I couldn't afford to do anything else on the car.
Yep.
So that was also very fun to do, and I didn't know how to do anything. And so if anything happened, I would just be like, I'll do it later. And then I ended up accumulating all the things that I needed to do.
To be done,
and pretty much turned it into a shit box by the time I got rid of it.
That's pretty much a typical and parallel story for almost any one of us, right? So like getting into cars, motorcycles, and things like that, like for us, it was, okay, well, we want to do all these mods and things, but it's like, well, you can take it to a shop. I can't afford that. Like, I'm just going to do it myself. And that kind of like, leads you down the path of, the DIY becoming like, now that's your career.
Yeah.
I'd say I learned pretty quick though with the Datsun, because then my next car, I bought like a brand new factory ordered Civic.
Oh, from the brand new.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
shoot.
I actually spec'd it and waited for it to be delivered, because I didn't want to pay any money for things that I wasn't going to use.
Nice.
So I already had wheels for it. I had all the things. So when it came, it was like the top of the line Civic EXV, but it had steel wheels on it.
Nice.
Like, just got rid of everything that I wasn't going to use.
Yeah.
And then it was great. Like
That car was pretty sick, man. Like you kind of been in the cars the whole thing. Like that whole time, like you were still in high school, but you had a car fucking sort of, distribution business already.
Car business when I was
shoot.
16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I got a business loan from the Better Business Development Bank. It's like a youth business program, and started a company called Car Toys.
Oh, no way. 16 years old.
Yeah. I was the first kid or the first participant in that program that paid the money back on time.
Wow.
I had to do like a whole thing on CBC radio.
Oh,
like,
shoot.
Another kid was like making canoes. So, like, they're just doing wild shit.
Making canoes, that's
nobody paid
awesome.
the money back.
Wow.
I think there were 6 of us that got chosen for the program, and like, one was making canoes, another one started a landscaping business, and then I can't remember what the other ones, but they were kind of those little bit of,
And so what were you doing? Just like installing
At
like
that
stereos
time,
and
it was
stuff?
like
Or
pretty much exclusively, I ended up installing like Mugen wings
oh,
on the
yeah.
hatches and CRXs and underglow kits.
Yeah, I remember. I remember the underglow at that
Underglow.
time, right? It was actual
Like
fucking neon tubes then.
Nah. Oh, shoot.
Which, obviously that's not a very good idea, but it was kind of, it was revolutionary.
So basically, I ended up just doing that for a whole summer. Like I would do 2, 3, 4 kits a day. Wow. I remember doing kits till like 2 a.m.
Oh, my goodness.
because everybody had to have it for Friday.
Or a car show.
So I did pretty well at that actually.
Wow,
I had a
that's
fax
awesome.
machine.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. If the younger generation don't know what a fax machine is, it's pretty much you send documents.
It's like text
a
messaging.
phone. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to type it out first, print it, and then send it through the fax machine. But the crazy thing is that's how I established my business, because at that time, a fax machine was like $1,000, and it immediately
That's a lot of money.
legitimized you.
Oh, shoot.
So I wouldn't even call these companies that I wanted to sell their parts. I would just fax them like dealer applications, And just the idea that you could fax them,
I was like, oh my
man, this
gosh.
guy's legit.
Yeah.
And I was like the distributor for everything.
That's
Like,
Yeah, I remember seeing all the stacks of all the like, you know, the
Catalogs.
books, catalogs, and all that stuff, and that blew me away. I was like, "Holy shit!
Yeah.
So
this is awesome."
I didn't even talk to these people. I just send them
So
faxes.
funny.
Anytime I ordered parts, I just send them a fax.
Yeah.
So they probably thought I was some like legit brick and mortar business, but I was like just sending faxes
Some
out
kid
of my
in the
basement.
basement.
That's amazing.
No, it's funny though, because like you look at through these catalogs and shit, like you're like, "Oh man, I gotta go to this company," you know, and so like you road trip all the way down to like California or wherever, like the promised land of cars. And you go to their place and it's like, you know, a multi-business complex sort of setup, and like they barely have an office.
They're like a hole in the wall.
You know, like what is this? This is this place?
They have a fax machine.
Hey, they had a fast
Yeah, they had a fax machine. They had a
and
magazine
catalogs, so
ad.
they're leveled up.
So we'd go rolling in there and like, man, this can't be the place. Then you get there, it's just like a hole in the wall, but they had a big presence in magazines.
Yeah.
I think one of the places we went to, I went to go buy that Simpson car seat when it first came out.
Yeah.
Had the little harnesses.
Yeah.
So we went to California, and we went to go to Simpson's. So we found the address. We went there. I was going to go buy it direct and bring this thing back with me. And we got there, and it was like a sweatshop of like little Mexican ladies just sewing seatbelts.
Oh my
I
god.
was like,
Is this the right place?
is this
I don't
the right
know.
place? Yeah, but it was like some satellite location. It was funny. Then you go to the big building. You're like, whoa, look at this. But
Yeah.
we know what the reality of the place is.
And so, when do cars become pain? I think we've kind of touched about it a little bit. Of
We've talked
your
about it
car.
a whole bunch of times, and it's like I think it becomes pain when, like, I would say, like, so many of these kids are whatever, and then like my thing is the Datsun was such a giant pile of shit that I learned every lesson in the beginning. So then my transition to a decent car, which was a Civic, so all you Honda guys that don't hate Hondas, and it was, so I learned a lot in that. So a lot of it's like poor planning, because I tore my car apart and I didn't have any money to put it back together. So I learned pretty quick. You don't tear it apart until you got money to put it back together. So I
Yeah,
don't-
money or skills, right?
and I mean, we still see it now. Like people are like, hey, what's going on with the Evil Evo? It's like, well, there's no point in me tearing apart until I can afford to do the job. So why incapacitate it and like create all this false sense of whatever?
Progress.
Yeah, so there's no real pain, because like once I get into it, it goes pretty smooth because I've made a plan. I've had time to think about it. I've got the parts, and yeah, it goes smooth, and then it's fun. So I think a lot of the pain is like self-inflicted.
Very true. Because a lot of times, looking back to what I've done, even with my current project cars, which they just keep multiplying every day, I feel like, and I just want more.
You're just chasing a tingle. That's what you're doing.
But I've mentioned this in the previous podcast. But going back to my Jag XJ6. I took that whole car. I did have a basic plan of, okay, I wanted to LS swap this Jag and just replace the engine. But I feel like I just started biting off way more than I could chew. And I should have just focused on getting the engine in initially, getting it running, and then fix everything else. Because the thing about like that happened with that car was I already had the engine in, and I was like, oh, okay, the interior doesn't look, it looks okay. I might as well, let me see what's underneath everything. And I raised up the carpet, or like got everything off, and I was like, oh my gosh, the floor is there's the rust poking through the floor. And I looked at one part, I just did a bunch of investigation, and I found a lot more things than I thought that were wrong with the thing. But looking back now, I should have made the car a functioning car before taking it apart more and more and more. And right now it's just a bare shell. Like everything is apart. The whole interior is a mess. We just threw away everything in the trash. I'm like, I'm not going to use any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just keeps spiraling and spiraling and it just never.
I think it's that whole thing that causes is like, while I'm in there,
Yeah.
while you're in there, and then it's like, look at the projects in the shop. Like so many people will book it in for a very specific thing, and then it's like, oh, you know, while you're in there, you might as well do this while you're in there. And it's like, no, your car has to leave.
Yeah,
like,
at some point it has to
like
leave.
you can only add so many things, but that's how shit spirals out of control. Like,
Yeah, and then it's a pain, right? So
Yeah.
it's you're chasing that passion, but it just becomes a fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And it just gets so spiraled out of control that like you end up with basically a pile of garbage.
Yep.
You know, and that's really unfortunate. Like we always talk about, like, you know, do a little bit at a time. Like you said, make it a functioning car, drive it, enjoy it, chip away at it a little bit. Sometimes the project is so far gone, like when you're talking about your Jag and finding the rust and shit, like sometimes it's not a good idea. Like, but I mean, you have to learn from that experience, or, you know, maybe you're lucky enough to be mentored by somebody that will tell you, hey man, maybe try poking around a little bit before you do any work.
Yeah.
Or before you even buy
it.
Yeah,
That's thing.
That's the bottom line. Like,
Yes.
before this is yours, make sure you investigate deep.
Yeah, because even for this Jag, like whenever it was time to buy it, had been sitting in the field for a while. But the reason I bought it was just because the series 1s, at least in the Jag community, are very rare. They're hard to find.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even look around it. I was like, oh, it's a series 1 Jag. I went to the guy. Yeah, shook his hand and took his money, or he took my money.
Yeah.
and
he's just like, oh,
and he went,
yeah, buddy.
yeah. And so I regretted it. Like afterwards, I was like, oh my, because he, in his Facebook ad, he was like, this is an amazing, it's glorious. It just doesn't run. It just needs blah blah blah, some tuning, some tune up. It's fine, all of that. I'm like, that's not true. This thing hasn't. There's water in the floors. There's like, oh my gosh, what have I got
Ran
myself
one
into?
part.
I know, ran one part.
I drove it to this spot. And that was it.
Yeah.
So I have definitely learned some experiences from that, and it hurts a lot. So I think for me, that is when at least that car has become a pain.
Yeah. So true. Well, with that learning experience comes, you know, a much more positive thing if you spin on it. Like you can chase the passion maybe on the next one.
Yeah,
it's a lot, man. Like you can get in over your head real quick.
Yeah.
It sucks because it's even to do simple things that you want to do that seem simple. Like you look on like YouTube and it's like, oh, I'm just going to do this. But even if you do the math of the tools that they needed to do that, it's probably like if you just added all that up, you could probably have bought a better car and saved yourself having to do that. But if you legitimately want to learn, and this is something that you want to do all the time, then you got to accept the expense of all those tools too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know,
and you got to put that into part of your plan.
Yeah.
Like it's okay, I'm gonna do this when I buy this welder, but you got to go buy a welder that's $1,000, or of course there's always cheaper ones. So don't quote me. You can probably get one for $300.
I got mine for $100 from Harbor Freight. So
there you go.
Yeah. It's terrible, but it kind of held things together briefly. Because some of the welds, like I did another thing, like when I got my Datsun, I was like, I'm not going to make the same mistake and tear this whole car apart with grand plans and not do it. And so I did learn that part. But I tried to put my Datsun, I tried to learn how to weld and all that. I didn't have any money. I was like, I'm just going to buy a cheap welder.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was not okay. The welds were so bad, it was terrible. But at least it was kind of fun. Like, ooh, it's gonna make some sparks, bzz, and you feel the sense of, I don't know, accomplishment.
Yeah.
So
that's the passion of it, right? That's the fun stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
And so, have you done something similar to like taking apart a car, like what he did with his 240, or no?
Yeah, I have a 240 in the shop right now.
I forgot about your 240.
Yeah. No, that one sits over here in the background and just keeps, you know, it's nagging at me all the time. But no, that's a very real thing, right? That project, I didn't find any rust or anything that I wasn't prepared to deal with. I just literally cut it all apart and made it a completely non-functioning car. And at some point in time, I'm going to have to step up and finish it.
Revisit that.
Yeah.
Because we have a build series on that, on the videos. And I feel like at least once every 2 to 3 weeks, we got a comment. And it's like, what happened to this project? Come on, Rob.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but like before that, like my very first car that I ever had, It was a 72 Chevelle.
Oh,
You know, and just kind of like how
Nice.
Tim got sucked into his Datsun.
Oh, no.
You got retail
Mine
red,
was
too.
mine was retail red, nice, glossy, looking good, you know. But it was the exact same kind of thing that your Datsun was.
Yeah.
Like just chicken wire and fiberglass and just a like skin deep disaster.
So sad.
So I didn't know that. I did not discover that, you know, through it falling apart or anything like that. I unfortunately wrapped it around a pole and discovered all
that's how you discovered
the
it.
issues that it had.
Oh no.
So I was like absolutely like devastated when I got in my accident, but you know, everybody was fine in that regard, but like the car itself was, you know, it was unrepairable for me. Like I could technically have put it back together, but at that time in life, we were working at, you know, TrickFactory was in its infancy, and we were working in a gravel driveway and like doing like a full like restoration, not an option.
yeah.
So
It was
the
not
evolution
ready for
of
that.
was like gravel driveway. Then we had to frame our own garage,
Yeah.
Wow.
and like it was.
Yeah. So
this evolution's been slow. Man.
Yeah.
It started from the bottom. Like
but it's been DIY for us.
yeah, like we
the
couldn't afford to
entire
get someone
time.
to come build a garage, so we literally made our own plans, and then like had to do all that process.
Mm-hmm.
Got my old boss in the fob shop to help me lay it out. Submitted plans. We framed it ourselves. My stepfather was there helping us.
Yep.
And like
That's
right through to
amazing.
the end, and then we ended up building a garage behind the house where we started, and then evolved into a space in the back of the fab shop that our old boss let us use. Mm-hmm. But then we did that for several years, but then it felt like we never left, because we would work a full 8-hour day and then go work another 8 in our own little space, but we never left the building. We
Yeah.
wouldn't even go outside.
Yeah.
So then we evolved into a small space, and then the space next door, and then the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah,
But
no,
that was a lot of money, and that slows up a lot of things too, because it's like even Rob's car sitting right now, it's because we're like so jammed full of stuff, you can't even barely see that thing.
No,
So
that's why I
now-
forgot about it
Yeah.
for a second.
Now that we've expanded into this other space with the paint shop, and that's going to open up the fab space again, probably bring that thing front of mind, and you'll be able to look at it and like
Yeah.
start chipping away, putting some more hours in. But right now it's tucked away in the corner. You don't even know it's there.
So sad.
Yeah, that's so true. I actually never really thought about that much in this new evolution of the shop. Like, it's gonna be there to see, and it's gonna be like, just be like, hey, what's
Work
up?
on
Like,
me.
work on me, hero. And so it'll be inspiring.
The
So
outside, I don't mind thing is it's real.
no, that's a very real thing. Like right now, it's a fucking storage shelf. So
So yeah, it's a lot of time, money, and expense.
yeah,
And I think that's why so many of these projects end up a pain and end up dead, because you weren't prepared for it when you started it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And we did it. So it's not just an easy thing to say. It's like it's been a massive expense to get to where we are. And it still doesn't stop.
It never ends. It literally never ends, and it almost seems like nowadays it's even more, because like in our earlier years, like we were just like hands-on, you know, manual machining, manually fabricating, making everything just by hand. And that was perfectly fine, and that was like the ideal at that time, right? Because it was this romantic notion of building it from by
But
hand.
it was the standard too. Like we probably had a 15-year run where everybody was on a level playing field.
Yeah,
Whereas now it's like technology is evolving so fast that like
Crazy.
they come out with something that makes everything you've done redundant.
Yeah.
Like if you're still doing it this way,
Yeah.
you're literally torturing yourself
Yeah,
for no
yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
And it's gotten so cheap. Like you see it like a 3D scanner.
Insane.
It's insane. Like how much were they a year ago compared
Yeah,
to what
now.
they are now? Now anybody can have one.
Yeah.
Like you got kids building wild shit that is like they're not even getting dirty anymore.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like it's evolved so fast, and if you don't keep up, like
You're gonna get left
you're
behind.
gonna get left behind.
Yeah, and the way I see it is like this technology, these advancements and stuff like that, these are not things just to make your life easier. They're just make your final product and your vision come to life in a level that is so much higher than you could probably make by hand. And that's kind of where I'm fired up about that idea. You know, I feel like that's going to allow us to create the things that we imagine, make it a potential. Like
Yeah, that's
that's
another
going to
thing.
become reality.
And there's so much resource now that there's just no reason it should be a pain.
Yeah.
Because you can go on YouTube and watch 5 different people accomplish the same goal 5 different ways.
True.
At 5 different levels of completion.
Yeah.
And then you can choose one. And if you watch that and you actually honestly pay attention to it, you should be able to assess if that's something that you can accomplish.
Yeah.
So like having these dead projects is like, that's just poor planning, and it's your own fault, because like you can watch literally someone telling you, that's the purpose of their content, is to show you the trials and tribulations of what they've trying to accomplish. And if you have a similar goal, why wouldn't you look at that and pay attention to it?
Yeah, I agree.
So like I think you can remove a lot of the pain now with what we have available to us. Like even me, there's certain tasks that if I haven't done it before, I'll check out to sort of, is there tips and tricks to help me do this faster?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
That's a valuable resource. We're lucky to have that.
You
now.
got to spend some time. Don't ever go with the first video you find.
No.
Go through a couple of them.
Yeah. I feel like you need to find the average of all.
Yeah, find the average, because
Yeah.
there's always going to be like one guy that's building a spaceship, and the other guy is like he should be posting videos,
Right.
But he got it done. But
Yeah.
if that's what you got and how you need to do it, then, because that's another thing. A lot of it is like we'll encounter these super crazy special tools that's like just the tool for the job, $600, but you can find somebody on YouTube that created their own tool. Maybe you can improve on it a bit, and next thing you know, you're getting the job done, because how often are you doing it? And maybe you need to do it one time, and there's a tip or trick for that'll save you a bunch of pain too.
Yes.
And make whatever you're doing a lot more reasonable, because he made a tool out of like $14 worth of stuff from the hardware store. So I mean, there shouldn't be a lot of reason for pain anymore. I think most of the pain is caused by your own poor planning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, right?
Very, very true.
The other thing that might potentially cause pain, but like you can prepare for this kind of stuff, is just like acquiring the parts and materials that you need to be able to do what
Before
you're
you
doing.
do it.
But like that comes down to planning too. So there's really not a lot of excuse.
Yeah, I feel like like you said, acquiring the parts that you need is also another thing too, because it's one thing to because I know sometimes I'm trying to think of like a specific example, but I know sometimes I don't have the tool that I need. And I know the tool exists, but I'm like, it's too expensive. And I end up struggling trying to get a particular task done.
Yeah.
When in hindsight, I'm like, when I'm already like 60% through it, I'm like, I should have just go and have bought that, saved up or whatever, and just swallowed the cost and bought that tool, as opposed to struggling with this one. Because now that I've gotten older, I'm like, oh yeah, time is worth
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's something that you learn sometimes the hard way, but like it's through a little bit of life experience. You realize that time is worth a lot.
And some of those things you just can't cheat.
No.
Like sometimes you end up creating more damage trying to cheat it. Now, not only do you have to buy a new part, you still got to get the tool.
Yes. I'm sitting there, regret, and I'm just looking at it, and I'm about to cry.
Yeah.
And it's a
For
whole
me, I
thing.
think the biggest frustration comes is like the break in workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
actually.
that's why I
Yeah.
like to get the tool. So I'll go on YouTube, see if there's anything special that I need, get my parts ready, and then do the job so that I can go through
Okay.
from start to finish.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you step away from it, who knows? It could be a week
You lose
before you get back
momentum.
to it. You
Very,
lose
very,
momentum.
very
You
true.
lose the part. Someone kicked half your bolts under, picked them up, put them away. Like, how often does it
Yeah.
happen? I can do it in one day, and half the bolts seem to go missing, and you're just like,
Yeah. That's one thing that I think we might have also touched on earlier too, but I think should be more emphasized is getting everything you need before tearing into things, because I've seen you guys work on stuff like pretty much all the cars that we do. Like, we don't just tear into it with the plans that we need to do without having all the tooling or everything needed, because again, like you said, that just slows time, and it also makes you lose enthusiasm towards something. Like, even again, your Evo too.
Yeah.
Like, be sure there were a lot of things to get done, but
well, I spent probably, I don't know, 3 hours just making a fitting list.
yeah.
And even in my best laid plans, there's little things that changed, and I was still running back and forth to
Yeah.
the parts
Yeah.
store to get the one missing fitting, or I got to change the degrees on this. But at the same time, I had other things already planned that needed to be done that I could be working on while that problem was being resolved.
Exactly.
But if it was just a dead stop, now I got to go do this and come back, and it's like you lose momentum, and momentum. It's hard to get it. It's hard to get dedicated time and to get momentum. So it's really important not to break it. That's why, like in the previous podcast, we talked about like break it off into manageable pieces that you can get done. Like we do it all the time. We have a crazy shop. We have all the resources, and even us, it's like on Saturday, I'm gonna just get this done. Yeah, that's it. I'm not gonna try to do a bunch of. If I can accomplish this on my own car today, that's gonna be a good day.
Yeah.
So it's
you can. That's a win then for sure.
So I think if you manage your project like that, then next thing you know, you got a crazy car.
Yeah. And it's less of a pain.
Not a shell.
Very true. Yeah.
So
anything else before we close this one?
Project planning, man, it'll take all the pain away.
Very, very important.
It basically applies to every single thing in your life.
Pretty much.
Like for real. So, it does.
Like you wouldn't approach anything else in your life like that. So don't approach your project like that, because you'll end up on blocks and sitting there. And then you start playing all those other games like, oh, I'm going to sell these wheels so I can buy these wheels. But if you don't already have the other half of the money, don't sell anything. Because that's why it ends up on jack stands.
Yep. Ask us how we know.
Yeah. We joke about it a lot about just send it.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the background, there's a little bit of a plan.
Yes, there has to be. Awesome. Okay, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys for watching and listening. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the podcast, also give it 5 stars. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.